My family has always been the kind that looks perfect from the outside. We had the big house with the white fence and the green lawn that my father mowed every Saturday morning. My mother hosted dinner parties where she served food that looked like it came from a magazine. My brother was the star athlete, and I was the quiet one who always did well in school. We were the family that other people pointed to and said they wanted that. But families are like icebergs. You only see the small part above the water. The rest is dark and cold and full of things you do not want to know. The story starts on a Thursday evening in late October. The air was crisp, and the leaves were falling off the trees in our neighborhood like orange and red confetti. I was driving home from my job at the accounting firm downtown. It was a job I did not love, but it paid the bills and it made my father proud. He always said that numbers were honest. Numbers did not lie like people did. I was stuck in traffic on the main road when my phone buzzed in the cup holder. It was my wife calling. She never called me during my drive home because she knew I hated talking on the phone while I was in the car. So I picked it up right away. She sounded strange when she said hello. Her voice was flat and tired like she had been crying for a long time. She told me that my mother had called her earlier that day. My mother never called my wife unless something was very wrong. My wife said that my father had fallen down the stairs in the middle of the afternoon. He was in the hospital now. The doctor said he had broken his hip and he would need surgery. But that was not the worst part. My wife paused for a long moment, and I could hear her breathing. Then she said that my father had been drinking. He had been drinking a lot. He was drunk when he fell, and he had been drunk for many days before that. My mother had been hiding it from everyone. She had been hiding it for years. I pulled my car over to the side of the road and turned off the engine. The world outside my window was quiet and golden in the evening light, but I felt like I was in a dark tunnel. My father was not a drinker. He was the man who taught me how to throw a baseball and how to change a tire. He was the man who shook my hand when I got my first real job and told me he was proud of me. He was the man who never raised his voice and who always had a calm answer for every problem. But now I was hearing that he had been hiding a bottle somewhere in the house. My mother had found empty whiskey bottles in his workshop. She had found them under the workbench and behind the old tool cabinet. She had been finding them for 2 years now. I drove to the hospital without really remembering the drive. My mind was a blur of old memories and new fears. While I walked into the room, I saw my father lying in a bed with white sheets pulled up to his chest. He looked smaller than I remembered. His face was pale, and his eyes were closed. My mother was sitting in a plastic chair next to him. Her hands were folded in her lap, and she was staring at the floor. She looked up when I came in, and I saw that her eyes were red and swollen. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She just shook her head and looked back down at her hands. My wife arrived a few minutes later. She came over and put her hand on my shoulder. We stood there in that quiet room, watching my father breathe. The machines next to his bed made soft beeping sounds that marked the passing of time. The doctor came in and explained the surgery. He said my father was stable, but he needed to be careful with the anesthesia because of his age and his condition. He did not say the word alcohol, but I knew that was what he meant. I asked my mother when she first knew. She looked at me with tired eyes and said she first found a bottle in his car about 2 years ago. She thought it was a one-time thing. She thought he was just stressed from work. But then she found more. She confronted him, and he promised to stop. He promised over and over again. My brother came in late that night. He flew in from the city where he lived and worked as a lawyer. He walked into the room with his expensive coat and his expensive shoes, and he looked at our father with a face full of anger. He did not look at our mother at all. He just stood at the foot of the bed and crossed his arms. He asked her how she could let this happen. He asked her how she could hide something like this from us. My mother started to cry. She said she was trying to protect us. She said she was trying to protect him. My brother laughed a cold laugh and said that protecting us would have been telling the truth. He said that protecting him would have been getting him help before he broke his hip on the stairs. I stood between them and told them to stop. I said we were all tired and scared, and this was not the time to fight. My brother looked at me with those eyes that always made me feel small. He said I was always the one who wanted to keep the peace. He said I was always the one who pretended that everything was fine. He walked out of the room and slammed the door behind him. My wife squeezed my hand, and I felt like I was going to fall apart right there in that sterile room with the beeping machines and the pale walls. The surgery went well the next morning. The doctor said my father would recover, but it would take time. He would need physical therapy, and he would need to be careful for many months. But the real problem was the drinking. The hospital social worker came to talk to us. She said they could recommend a rehabilitation program for my father. She said it would be up to him to accept the help. My father woke up later that day, and he looked around the room with confused eyes. He did not remember falling. He did not remember the whiskey. He looked at my mother and asked her what happened. She took his hand and told him the truth. She told him everything. He closed his eyes and turned his head away from her. That is when the fight really started. My brother came back to the hospital that evening, and he went straight to my father's bedside. He did not ask how he was feeling. He did not ask if he was in pain. He asked him why he did this to us. He asked him why he chose whiskey over his own family. My father did not answer. He just stared at the ceiling with empty eyes. My mother tried to calm my brother down, but he would not listen. He said that all the years of pretending were over. He said that our father was a liar, and our mother was a liar, and the whole family was a lie. I tried to step in again, but my brother turned on me. He said that I was the worst of all because I knew. He said that I knew about the drinking, and I did nothing. The room went silent. My wife looked at me with a question on her face. My mother looked at me with shock. My father turned his head and looked at me with eyes that were suddenly very clear. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. My brother was right. I had known about the drinking for a year. I had found a bottle in my father's trunk when I borrowed his car one afternoon. I had seen empty bottles in the garbage can at his house. I had smelled the whiskey on his breath when he hugged me at my birthday dinner. But I did not say anything. I told myself it was not my place. I told myself my mother would handle it. I told myself that my father was a grown man and he could make his own choices. I was a coward and I knew it. I looked at my wife and she stepped back from me. She did not say a word, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. She had always trusted me to do the right thing. She had always believed that I was the honest one in her life. And now she was seeing that I was just like the rest of my family. I was good at hiding things. I was good at pretending. I was good at keeping the peace, even when the peace was built on a foundation of lies. My brother kept talking. He said that he was done with this family. He said that he had spent his whole life trying to be perfect because our father demanded perfection. He said he went to law school and worked long hours and made a lot of money so that our father would finally look at him with pride. But now he saw that it did not matter. Our father did not care about any of us. Our father only cared about his whiskey and his secrets. He grabbed his coat and walked out of the room without looking back. I heard his footsteps echo down the hallway and then the sound of the exit door swinging shut. My mother started to cry again. She said she was sorry. She said she was sorry for keeping the secret. She said she was sorry for not being stronger. She said she was sorry that our family was falling apart. My father reached out and took her hand. He said it was not her fault. He said it was his fault. He said he started drinking after he lost his job 3 years ago. He had been laid off from the company where he worked for 30 years. He did not tell anyone because he was ashamed. He pretended to go to work every morning and he spent his days at the library or in the park. He cashed out his retirement savings to pay the bills and he hid the truth from all of us. I felt the air leave my lungs. I had no idea he lost his job. I had no idea he was going through that alone. He was the man who taught me to be honest, and he was drowning in his own shame, and I did not even notice. I walked over to his bed, and I sat down on the edge. I took his other hand, and I told him I was sorry. I told him I was sorry for not being there. I told him I was sorry for knowing about the whiskey and not saying anything. I told him that he was not alone anymore. He looked at me with tears in his eyes, and he squeezed my hand. My wife came over and sat on the other side of the bed. She did not say anything about my secret. She just put her hand on my shoulder and let me know she was there. My mother stopped crying, and she looked at the three of us gathered around my father's bed. She said we were still a family. She said we were broken and bruised, but we were still a family. My father nodded, and he said he would go to the rehabilitation program. He said he would get help. He said he would stop hiding. The next few months were hard. My father went to a rehab center for 6 weeks. My mother went to therapy. My brother did not come back for a long time. I started visiting my parents more often. I helped my mother with the house, and I drove my father to his physical therapy appointments. I talked to him about his feelings, and he talked to me about his fears. It was awkward and painful, and sometimes we sat in silence because we did not know what to say. But we kept trying. My wife and I had our own conversations about trust and honesty. She told me that she was hurt that I kept the secret from her. She said that a marriage is built on truth, and I broke that trust. I listened to her, and I did not make excuses. I told her she was right, and I promised to never keep something like that from her again. It took time, but she forgave me. She saw that I was trying to be better. My brother finally came home for Christmas that year. He walked into the house with the same stiff posture and the same cold eyes. But he softened when he saw our father sitting in his favorite chair with a cup of tea in his hand. Our father stood up slowly with the help of his cane, and he walked over to my brother. He said he was sorry. He said he was sorry for all the years of pressure and all the years of silence. My brother stood there for a long moment, and then he hugged him. It was the first time I had seen them hug in years. The story of my family is not a happy story with a neat ending. My father still struggles with his sobriety some days. My mother still worries. My brother still has walls around his heart, and I still carry the guilt of my silence. But we are trying. We are talking. We are not hiding anymore. The white fence and the green lawn are still there. But now we know what lies beneath the surface. It is not pretty. It is not perfect, but it is real, and that is enough. The truth did not fix everything, but it gave us a chance to start over. And that is more than we had before. Thank you for listening to this story from my life. I hope it helps someone out there who is also carrying a heavy secret. You are not alone. Your family is not alone. The first step is always the hardest, but it is also the most important. Take that step. Tell the truth. Start the conversation. It might not be easy, but it will be worth it.